And so the NSL, which had been dying for many years ever since Zefram took over, was shaken to the core when the NS2 developers officially abandoned the game, and the NSL was forever changed. The admin team struggled throughout the years to keep members on staff, and had never truly remained stable. In the last few years, it had become steadily worse, culminating in the disastrous reign of Ozilla. A slight resurgence was attempted after this, but was soon cut short after only several tournaments. Now the admin team consists solely of Wraith, a man who can only host unwanted draft tournaments, and who is content to be king of the Ashes. Golden, determined to never let a game that had been such a large part of his life die in front of him, had played until the very last team tournament. Once a great player, head of one of the top premier teams, he was reduced to a shadow of his former self, losing to teams with players such as P-Stash and Drop on them. After his final loss, Golden would not return to the NSL, and would never again achieve the level of skill or dominance he once had so many years ago. Continually failing to place first and win tournaments, Infamous would attain the title King of Third Place, or simply the perpetual loser. Despite playing for years, Infamous was not able to achieve his dreams of truly competing and winning at a high level. While he was responsible for hosting multiple tournaments to keep the NSL alive, Infamous left the scene shortly after his team disbanded, days before the last open tournament. In his final act as an admin, he handed control of the league over to Wraith, dooming it for good. After quickly surpassing all other players around him, Ranger soon found himself bored with the level of competition the NSL offered him. His ego grew to dangerous levels, and the amount of sexually frustrated nerd rage he exacted upon those who displeased him caused many players to leave the NSL. Eventually, he tired of the lack of competition within the league and would leave the scene for good. He remains a controversial figure, but is one who indisputably changed the meta forever. Watching the fall of the NSL from the shadows, we could only find it bittersweet. He had stopped playing long ago, refusing to play with those he felt beneath him. During his self-imposed exile, he had been publishing many memes mocking the state of the league and players. With the NSL in its last death throes, and with no other notable players to ridicule, we would turn away from the NSL and reminisce on the times when playing NS2 was actually fun. Billy, finally driven mad by his hatred of Intergalactic, stopped playing NS2 after he was forcibly committed to a psychiatric ward. He remains a ward of the state to this day, unaware of reality, repeatedly screaming, "Bite the gate, not the RT, you massive retard!" Tired of the rampant cheating and lack of legitimate competition, Heracles left the NSL many years ago. Attaining the status of a legendary player who never shot under 30%, many had tried to bring him back. Heracles would refuse them all, however, for after losing his final matches to the notorious cheaters April and Marshmallow, he had been left a disillusioned, weary man. He can now be found playing Hell Let Loose, trying to find peace within what remains of his gaming life. With his daughter growing up, Shu decided to exit the competitive community to focus more on his family. Shu would occasionally reminisce about his time playing in the NSL, raging at noobs and abusing newer players. While he was not missed by all, the loss of such a bombastic character was felt throughout the community, and Gathers seemed all the more empty without him. The Russians continued to play NS2 in their own isolated enclave. Crazy Cat remained as their czar, keeping their servers up and their members in check. Despite this, after the ascension of Wraith as league admin, the Russians shunned further participation in the NSL, as even they could not be bothered to play in regurgitated draft tournaments hosted every few months. Thus, after a decade of participation, the historical Russian involvement with the league was at an end. Captaining one of the longest-ran teams in the NSL's history, Crowbar had kept Elo Gain in the running for as long as he could. With the mass exodus of players from the NSL, Crowbar had decided to leave the community as well, and his team would never play again. Once severely addicted to NS2, Crowbar had finally broken free of this curse and had begun to construct a life outside of the game for himself, with rumors abounding that he had finally gotten a job and even joined a band. The last known words of Crowbar were, "GG. See you guys at the next LAN." Clinging to power while also foregoing any responsibility, Loam would continue to keep his admin position in the NSL Discord and use his powers unchecked. However, with the waning player base of the NSL, his position would soon only govern the void of what once was a thriving community. An outspoken critic of commanders having too much of an impact on the game, Loam had stopped playing NS2 long ago, after continuously losing to Ranger when pitted against him in gathers. He moved on from NS2 to play other games such as Apex and Overwatch, where he hoped to find a game where he could solely blame his losses on his teammates, rather than on a better opponent. After his voice-changing deception had been found out, Mega vanished from the NSL altogether. Once a mainstay of the community and a man everyone knew, the sudden disappearance of Mega was noticed by all. Some believe that Mega was too embarrassed to have people find out that his voice was identical to Knightsy's, and that he left out of shame. The truth may never be known, but many believe that Mega is still out there somewhere, finding another community to deceive, with a voice changer. Unlike so many others, the departure of UWE did not dissuade ASDF from continuing to play, and even work on NS2. Responsible for the programming of Comp Mod, he was recruited by Shifter to program for the new Public Balance mod. The last remaining unpaid developer in an abandoned game, ASDF would soon learn that he was the final patsy, and that he was only improving the game for the likes of Zao and other related degenerates. Star Satirius and K-Mac are currently searching for ASDF, hoping to help him reclaim his mind before the madness takes over, as has happened to so many unpaid developers before. Once a player with great promise, Knightsy abandoned the scene after a falling out with several other notable players within the league. Returning only to meme and BM, Knightsy would never play in a gather or tournament again. For a time, he would smurf in pubs, intentionally ruining games for his own pleasure. This was short-lived, however, and Knightsy is now banned from almost all remaining public servers, and exists only as a memory to those who knew him in-game. Daedek was always a controversial man, becoming unhinged with rage at even the smallest slight. The fall of the NSL did not dissuade Daedek like it did with many others, and he would continue to play NS2 until the very end. He kept issuing death threats or threatening to show his genitals anytime someone killed or BM'd his lurk, always resulting in temporary but never permanent bans. It has been said that he may one day get court-ordered counseling and be forced to leave NS2. But this hope has been lost long ago. And so the NSL's road came to an end. In the new world of UWE no longer supporting NS2, no new players came in, old players kept leaving, and the game continued to diminish until there was no one left but Daedek to scream into the void. And now, NS2 is finally dead.